Hello folks. So the first part of this video was actually lost. I ended up getting a crash while I was recording, and then the recording became corrupt. But during the first part of the video, I went through how we did this highlight through here. Most of the work you see on this mini was done by me off screen. But during the video that we lost, unfortunately, we're missing the parts where I talk about all these non-metallic metals. So we'll have to catch this in another video. But as you can see here, these are all the non-metallic areas on the mini, as well as this area here on the foot, which is not a non-metallic metal, but it is highlighted in a similar fashion. And then we came around here, and the video is going to pick up right where we're working on this side of the mini. So I just want to let you know we did do some work here for the stream, but during the crash we ended up losing this first part. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and cut back to the video. Thanks. So we're going to move along to the back here. You've seen we worked a little bit more on the foot here, but we're going to work on this area of the mini, which has some bare bones stuff done to it here, but could definitely use some extra work. So we're going to start off here in grayscale. Now when we look at this area at the top of the tail, this is going to be an area that's very similar to our second reference. Yeah, so it's going to look a lot like this. So we're going to come through, but instead of having our lots of different colors, we're going to come through using our whites and our blacks. So we're going to grab up some of our almost pure white. We're going to grab just a touch of gray into it. And we're going to come through here, and we're going to put our main highlight here. Break that up right there. I'm going to bring our main highlight through here. Catch the top of that cut. Bring the next main highlight through. And there, just to offset it ever so slightly. Alright, and then we're going to work on getting our secondary in. Right. Grab some of our lighter gray and come back through and start to blend. Just through stippling in here. These are ones we're taking right to the edge here. Same thing for this secondary speculative. Let's come right under it here. Go in for a little bit darker gray here. And blend that as well. touch here. Getting a little bit more water. Take a little bit of our darker, or a little bit more of our black here, and pull this in. We're just going to strengthen this as well into this area. Making this a bit darker here. Grab almost our pure black here and come along into this darkest area here. And then we want to have our mid-tone gray come back in here at the tops. So this is just this lighter mid-tone that we're going to use. We're going to grab a little bit more water. We're going to blend towards, whoop, that's a little too light. Let's go ahead and pull this back down just a touch. Yeah, let's try this. Okay, yeah. That's more what I'm looking for. So we can fix the edge of that. I'm actually going to come in here with a bit more of our dark color. Right around some of these little bits here, and we're going to darken this up so that we have our nice shadows. I do see this still, I do see this still dropping quite a few frames. You know, this could just be my internet today. It might not be something that I can fix here. I'm gonna go try one more time. Alright, let's see if we can't pull this rate down here and drop less frames. Looks like we're just exceeding our internet here today, yeah. Okay, now I see quite a bit of difference here in the frame drop. It is slowly working its way down. Alright. Yep. My guess is internet's just having a moment. Alright, so we're just going to continue to work on this armor panel here. And all we're doing here is continue to pick out the spots. Now that we've done some of our non-metallics here, we're just going to continue to pick out any spots that need some additional highlights or blending, such as the top of this skull. It's a little bit too harsh going into the flat panel. It's okay here that it's sharp because that is a sharp edge on the skull that makes sense that that would be what that's doing. Right, and we're going to want to add a little bit of blue tone in there to match what we have going on. So this is to match what we already see, and this color is Army Painter Dark Sky. Go ahead and get this done. This is just a bit stopped up. This on the palette, and sometimes terrible things happen. And the pot, because it was stopped up, kind of came apart, but that's all right. In the end, we got some paint on our palette, quite a lot of it, but go ahead and push this off to the side so we don't have any additional mistakes that occur. Get this part out of the way, and we're just going to keep rolling. This is one of those days, I suppose, that a few bad things are going to happen, but we're going to thin this dark sky way, way down, almost to the point where it's a wash. Oh yeah, that looks like it's doing much, much better for bitrate. And we're going to pull that in here. Especially in these darker areas. Alright, make sure you can still see. Alright, we're going to start working over here towards this area where all of these skulls are at. And so you can see like this front portion has been done. You can see kind of where we're going to go with it, but this back portion has not been done at all. And so for this, we're going to want to grab a little bit of our off-white here. So let's do that. And this is looking a lot better on my side as far as dropping frames. 1721 is what I had dropped. And I don't seem to have dropped frames again, which is great. Alright. So we're going to use a little bit of our skeleton bone here, which makes sense. These are skeletons. Pull this onto our palette. This is going to be the mid-tone for these skulls, as we had on the other side. Alright, get these to flow. Alright, and now we're just going to work most of the areas that are on top of the skulls, because that is where most of this brighter color would be. And so in a very similar way to the way that we ended up doing the feet over there and the other metal bits, we're going to be working with our midtone and then coming up from the midtone and then down into the shadows. That is, yeah, that's also a skull. Just making sure. For a very brief moment, I thought it might have been a Necron head, which wasn't going to make a ton of sense for this guy for AOS. But since this model can also be used for Warhammer 40k, it was a possibility. Alright, and this one has quite a bit of skin still left, but that's okay. We'll use the same midtone for the bone as we are for the skin here. Grab just a little bit more of that. Come in here with this broken skull. And we're just going to strengthen this up here, so we're not actually switching colors. We're just strengthening what's there. Alright, so I have not dropped a frame here in quite some time, so I believe that I have managed to fix this. Now, what the recording is going to look like on the other side of this, who knows? But I believe I now have the stream under control. Alright, now I'm going to grab just a little bit of our sand color. I'm going to add it to our skeleton bone. I'm going to come in and we're going to start working these volumetric highlights. So now, just working within the area that we were in, only picking out the highest bits here. And you can see the direction I'm going here does matter. Want to make sure that we're following the lines on the models here. Otherwise, it'll start to look a bit strange. Alright, you can see this was pretty much what was used here on this other side. And we're just going to bring some more of this color around just for consistency. And you could see that transition was a little too intense. So we're going to come in and we're going to stipple some more of our color in. And that's going to fix the harshness of that transition, which is normally the way you're going to fix that. There's some other ways sometimes, but for this, that generally is going to be your fix. Alright, we're going to come in with a little bit more of our sand color into our skeleton bone. Yep, so now I've not dropped the frame in, it looks like about 10 minutes. So hopefully this is all looking a bit better on your side. Get this so that it flows. You don't want to go too crazy here. But we're just going to pick out our brightest areas. It's coming together there. Alright, we're going to bring our blue back around too. So we're going to take some of this that we've already done down here. This again is our Army Painter blue that we've basically made into a very, very thin wash. And we're going to come up into the darker areas here. And we're going to add this into our darker areas because this blue color is what most of this other side has been done in for its shade. So we're just going to bring this into the darkest areas on each of these. And this creates some visual interest on this model because from the right side we have a red color, and from this side it's much more of a cooler blue. I'm going to work this in here, and we'll bring this around just to keep this consistent here. And again, we're going to fuzz the transition here. A little bit of stippling, just until you see that disappear, until you have that darkness that comes in there. Then we can come in the darkest parts and do the same thing. And we're going to deepen some of this. Alright, so now we're bringing out some of those skulls. Now, our grays down here, our whites and blacks, actually got mixed together when we had our paint mistake. And so that's why if your paint is actually ever clogged, you probably don't want to force it like I just did. When you force your paint, sometimes the ink comes off. And so that's actually what we got going on there. So, as you can see, there was a little oops. But we carry on. We're just going to clean up my brush here. So I put the black down. Let's go ahead and grab up the white. And this is going to let us come in here. I'm going to grab some. I'm just going to make a mid-tone gray again. It's a little bit brighter than our mid, so just above it. That way I can come back in here and I can work on some of these highlights too. So we're just going to strengthen this highlight here. And we're going to come in here, start picking out these chains and the top of the belt here, because I want this to be distinct. I want to be able to see this belt down in here. And so we're going to go ahead and we're going to bring this together. And there's a skull right here that we're going to bring a little bit of attention to. You can see right here there's some little brads that we're touching. It's a little bit more chain down in here. Gonna grab some of that chain here. Alright. Any of these parts here that would grab up some more light, we're just gonna get a little bit more of that just above mid-tone gray on. And now we're going to do our same deal. We're actually going to grab some more of our white, bring it into our gray. And now we have a little bit more of a highlight that we can work with. So we can pull that in, we can start getting some of the brightest portions here. various portions of the belt right there at the top. I'm going to fuzz this transition just a little bit. This edge highlight here. Pull that into there. Just catching some of these portions here where I know there would be a little more light catching. All right. And you can see here we've gotten this very similar. It's going to bring a little bit of a highlight here to this part of the skull. Consistency is also nice on these things. And we're going to pull some more of our blue here into these shaded areas. Then inside of these shaded blue areas here on the tail, we're actually going to bring back some of this white. So just a touch here or there. I think for the most part that's looking pretty good. So let's move over here to the arm. We have another 30 minutes left here. And yeah, okay, awesome. I've not dropped a frame now in 30 minutes. So, all right. It seems like there was just an issue with the encoder. So I switched off to a different one. And it seems to be okay now. I'll have to figure out what was going on there. I have had a few small computer hiccups the last, I don't know, day or so. And so we're going to actually work in here. This hand was painted independently before the rest of the model was. And so, along with the sword, this was actually done for a YouTube short. And so we're going to have some of this color come in here. But our goal here is going to actually be to blend this in. And you can see here where there's a little bit of red in there as well. Same thing here. We're going to try and blend a little bit more of this in. And to do that, we're going to add just a little more, but not too much of this midtone in. Because we definitely don't want to overdo it, but we want to look like it is fading. So let me get this down, move my camera back just a touch, get my light over. All right, and so now you can see down in here where I'm working. So we're really just stippling our midtone in down in here, but it's very thin because this is where the model is actually going to fade back towards the rest. And even though this is in shadow, we still want to bring this out. So So we're going to stipple in here as well, and we're going to try, there we go. Yeah, I definitely appreciate the ones that are sticking this stream out. This stream is definitely on the struggle bus right now. Between the bitrate and now, you're not quite getting everything where it belongs. Alright, so now I think you can see pretty well. Let's grab just a touch of our ivory here. And then the very top portion of this, actually gonna highlight in here just to bring this out. Same thing for this area. And in here. Then we're going to grab just a little bit more of our midtone. We're kind of going the opposite way. Before we started with a midtone and we're working our way around, here we put our highlight in and are kind of working our midtone around it, because this is all kind of faded from being too close to Malal here. We'll do the same in here. This is going to fade to the blue, but the transition is just a little too harsh here. Same thing here for this red hull. We're going to come in and add a little more of this. And let's pull that off there. And I touched right there with the brush, but we're going to remove most of this. You can see I made a mistake there and hit right there with the brush, but I've just got water on the brush, and I'm going to pull most of this off just with the brush. Alright. Let's come back in here with some more of this mid. Right here, we're just trying to transition a little bit nicer so the transition isn't so harsh. I'm going to pull our sword down into here. You can see right there where I'm working. Right. So that transition is a little bit less harsh now. You can see it fades into the blue there and into the black over there. So I'm a little bit happier with that. Now, let's work on these two panels right here. So you can see this panel on his leg has this highlight, the volumetric highlight going from a deep blue all the way up to an almost ivory. And these panels right here also need that, since this is a very similar thing. So what we're going to do is take a little bit of our ivory color, mix with a little bit of our skeleton bone, and a little bit of our blue. And we're going to come in. You got to be careful mixing too much of this together here, because it's going to start to turn green. And so, because there's yellow in that, so we got to watch out. We don't really want it to mix so much as we want it just to be a very thin layer on. So that's what we're going to do here. I'm going to come in, I'm going to start that with a volumetric highlight. So this is going to be the brightest portion right there. And the skulls are in the way. So it's going to be a bit darker. And then we're going to pull that to there. And we're going to leave that area dark there. Then this is going to have just a touch of color here from the floor, because it's actually fairly bright. So we're going to pull just a tad over there. And then we're going to slowly work this up as well. So this is very thin down. I'm just going to pull that in as well, just as we did at the other side. But we don't really want these to mix, because if they do, again, they will turn green. And green is not really what we want here, so we do want that to kind of dry before we move on with it. While it's drying, let's take a look around the rest of the model and see what else needs doing. We are looking pretty good. I don't want all of this to be super high detail, because in some of this is where the color is kind of coming from the icon, and then over here we have kind of the color being removed here. All right, this is a little bit more dry here, so we can come in with our blue, work this towards our darker areas here. And same thing here. Kind of blending these into each other. And then fuzzing the area in here as well. So some of our brighter area, but we're going to fuzz that as well. Alright, so we're getting that nice blend. Come down into that recess with our darker blue. And we're going to let that dry, because we don't want it to mix, because it will be green. Alright. And this model is approaching completeness. Today's stream and YouTube video was really about me finding some of the smaller details here on this model, and not having you have to watch through the whole process of blending all these little bits and pieces, but really seeing how I put together the model. Right. I'm going to come back in again with some more of that dark blue. I'm going to bring that in. I'm just going to blend that through. Some water here. Right. And let that dry again. And this is mostly glazing when we're getting down into those areas. Okay. So I think for now we're going to put him aside. And we're going to pick up our icons. So there's a part on the shoulder here for this demon that the icons are going to go. And we have them all here. And in this way, I think we're going to use a little bit of contrast for these guys. So we'll start out with the corn one here. And for this one, we're actually going to pull away from our wet palette, because we don't want to to mix water into this. And so I'm going to take my wet palette away. I'm going to put that to the side for now. We're going to remove this mess over here, which I'll fix after we're done. I'm going to pull out one of these. This is from the dollar store. They come in packs of 6, at least where I am from. And we're going to use this to mix up our contrast. So we have our skeleton horde here. I'm going to use a monster size brush here from Army Painter to just pull this out and stick it in there. And then we're going to be mixing this with some medium. So we're going to go 3 brushfuls here. And we're going to wash our brush out. Go ahead and this part here doesn't really need the focus, but we're going to now bring in our technical contrast medium. This way we don't affect its properties. And we're going to put 1 big brushful in there. Get that mixed around really well. And then we're going to wash our brush out. And now I'm going to come in here and bring you the corn one. And there are skulls in this. So we're going to use this brush here, which is the old regiment brush. And this is the brush I generally use here for these kind of washes and other things. And we're going to get this all in the skull area. Then we're going to take it where it pools too much. I'm going to pull that off. I'm going to make sure it doesn't bridge these gaps here from the other side. All right. And there we are. So there's our corn one started out, and of course this is also going to end up being red. But while we're over here with our contrasts, let's go ahead and get our Zinch color, our Nurgle color, and our Slaanesh color. Right. So let's go ahead and use some Frostheart contrast on our Zinch. I'm going to use a similar process here, but I don't need as much. That first time I got quite a lot, so we're going to go ahead and grab 1 brushful here of our Frostheart, wash out our brush really nice. And then we're going to grab some contrast medium, 1 brushful, put that in there. That should be more than enough. Then I'm going to wash my brush out, and we're just going to apply this. So let's grab this. All right. Now it's quite a lot of it, so we're going to come back around. We're going to make sure it's pooling only where we want it. I'm going to grab a little more. Get it on this side. Alright. So, there's our Zinch. Well, now we have our Nurgle. For that, we're going to be using Plate Bearer Flesh. Go ahead and shake this up really well. Pull this out. Grab me a nice brushful. Make sure my brush is very clean. Then I'm going to come here, grab another brushful of our medium. And then I'm going to come in with this, the same as the other. I'm going to get that all over here. I'm going to make sure it's only pooling though where we want it to pool. You can see here I'm coming back in with the brush, making sure it's all the way down in the crevices, but not overextending, so not pooling in a way that I don't want it to. Alright, now that looks pretty good as well. Then here, for our Slanesh one, let's come back over here. And we're going to grab a pink purple, if we can. Having to go into a few different areas to grab these. Alright. We're going to grab our Doomfire purple and our Dreadful Visage. I'm going to go ahead and pull these over too so you can see them. So we have our Doomfire magenta here and our Dreadful Visage. These are both contrast. Go ahead and give them a good shake. And we're going to mix these together to go on our Slanesh. So I'm going to grab a brush full Doomfire magenta and a brush full of our purple. And then we're going to grab our contrast medium again. And mix that right in. And then we're going to do the exact same thing we did with the others, which is come in, make sure we have good coverage, and then pull it off where we don't want it, where we got too much. All right. So here you can see where we're at with these. And now I'm actually going to cheat a bit. So I'm going to go ahead and get my hairdryer. I'm going to mute you guys. Grab the hairdryer. And I'm going to go ahead and dry these up. Alright, now that that's dried, you can see how nice that actually looks. It does exactly what it's supposed to here. Same thing here, it goes down into the recesses. And if I'd mixed water into this, it would have done this a whole lot worse. It would not have liked this. and here. Now, you could, if you so desired, stop here. That would be fine. But in the case of this, so that it matches the rest of the demon, it's going to go on his shoulder. We're actually going to do some little bit of non-metallic metal around each one of these. And the corn one needs a little bit more color in general. So we're going to come here and using our brush here, our Kalinsky Masterclass, we're going to grab our midtone and we're going to come through and we're going to go around the area that's going to be metal on this. And so that's going to be this portion. So let's make sure you can see what's going on. There we go. Now you very well could just use true metallics for this, and that would be absolutely fine. In fact, for the most part, it's probably the right thing to do. But because the rest of the demon only has non-metallics on it, this is going to help this piece to blend in and make it look like it belongs. If I just tossed on, you know, some Retributor armor or something here, it would be fine, but it definitely would not look as uniform as this is going to. So now we have our base tone in there. And we're going to come over here and do the same thing. Yep, you can see I've made a few little mistakes here. That's okay, we'll clean those up in a moment. You can see we're just putting our mid-tone for the non-metallics in. Alright, now what happens when you mess up around these contrast paints? Well, you take a little bit of your base tone, you come back in, and you cover it up. And then you'll actually come back and using some of the contrast paint, go back over it. And that's what I'm going to do here. Just going to grab in there. Just clean up anywhere I accidentally touched. And now we're going to strengthen this base tone. We're just going to go right, or not base tone, we're going to strengthen the mid-tone. I'm going to go right back over it here. But we need a sharper point than that, so let's grab our paint. Twist this brush on our palette into a sharp point, and we're going to come back and continue to paint. This is not a step change, this is the same paint. We're just adding another layer so that it's nice and solid. Coming around. now this little tricky portion over here again. And I immediately put it in the wrong place. Solid work by me right there. Alright, see if I can't pull this off before it totally dries. The answer is no. So let's go ahead and come back with our base tone here. Put it back in. Then those little sections there will have to go back over with our contrast paint. Now, I'm not going to grab this contrast paint with this nicer brush. I'm going to come back in with the brush that I was using before. And I'm going to mute you real quick and dry this, because these contrast paints are transparent. If they get mixed together, they'll be kind of a cloudy, milky color, and they won't really look good at all. So I'm going to dry this up, and then I'm going to go back over it and fix that mistake. Alright, that didn't take any time there, so let's grab our contrast paint. I'm going to come in and add it back to there, and add our contrast back to there. Then we have a little tiny bit that needs to go right in there. And we're going to push this to the very tip of this brush. Alright, now that is back in. Excellent. We're going to knock some of these over just for fun. Okay. Now let's do what we had done with the other. Let's get some highlights in here. So this is going to sit like so. So let's put the highlight through here. This will come out on this other side. You can see this should be a relatively straight line through here for this type of highlight, and then we're going to put one here, here, and then we're going to follow. These are the same paints that we used on all the rest of it when we were doing the non-metallics on the arm and when we were doing it on the leg. So this is the same deal. Finding where those secondary and the main, the secondary, and then the shadows are going to fall, and just getting them in there. Alright. Have that here. There. Very carefully pulling this down here and here. Then we had our slightly brighter mid-tone. This is our sand yellow. I'm going to come in. So this is like those doorknobs, or not doorknobs, but the locks that we looked at. Let's get this brush nice and pointed again. Alright, there we go. Same thing here. We'll go over just a little bit today, because I would like to finish this up, and I would like to put some gems on this. So, for these gems, you can see there's 1, 2, 3, 4 of them. And then we have an eye as well. So, I'm going to come in. And work on that eye just a tad. We're going to use our same large pile of midnight blue here, or dark sky blue, sorry, and start these jewels. So they're going to be dark jewels that are blue. These things are so small, I'm having to not breathe very hard while I'm painting them. Alright. Then we're going to grab some more of this. This is just our dark sky blue. And we're going to come down here. Then after about 2 hours here, my eyes, as they are getting old, do start to have a harder time focusing on this. So you can actually see this a little bit better than I can even. Now we have a little bit of paint that's dried at the end of our brush. So I'm going to remove that. Just come back in here, get a little bit of water. Bring this back down into the middle. There we go. And get this jewel painted. Alright, gonna come in. Add a little bit of white here to our dark sky blue. A little bit of water just so it flows. We're going to make a very, very sharp point on this brush. I'm going to come down here on these. Start to get these jewels with the speculative highlight started. So as long as the light's coming from the top, this will actually be along the bottom. And we don't want to go super duper crazy on these because this thing is super small. But we're going to come here, and on each of these, we're going to put the final highlight on. All right. So now I'm going to go ahead and grab up my medium layer brush here. And we're going to finish this off by edge highlighting around the top of it. So we're going to hit this. And this is just with some white paint that has had just a touch of gray added in, so it's not super duper bright. But we want to make sure we're giving this definition. Especially in the portion that would pick up the most light, so in this area right here. Even bring that down onto it slightly. Alright, and our little tiny Zinch icon is going to be complete. Now, off camera, I'm going to go ahead and finish up each of these other ones. And then I think we'll be working on something new for next time. Probably our battle line, or we'll be working on the Ogren HQ. And so I'll probably do the work on the base and the work over the rest of the model, and then we will work on a lot of our detail work and non-metallics on that. But there we go. So there's our Zinch icon. I'll go ahead and pull it off and you can see it on the model. That'll be the last thing we do today. Grab my cutters here. So for anyone wondering what's one I have here, this is Zurion. This is another brand I really, really like. I've had these for quite some time. They're made in the USA, and these still cut very, very well. I'm going to put the flat side towards the model here. And we're just going to snip this off. And there we are. There will be a little tiny area down here that needs touching up. That's okay though, because I'm going to grab just a little bit of our blue and come down here. That way there's no raw plastic on this at all. So this piece is done. We have our little Zinch icon. Grab our Daemon Prince, bonk the Daemon Prince into the light. And then we can take our icon and we can slide it on. And I'm going to back you up and I'm going to zoom you out. So hold on one moment. This way? Nope, wrong way. There we are. Alright, let's move the light here so you can see. And there we go. There is our icon on there with our matching non-metallics. Alright, so thank you for joining me today, folks. I am sorry about the technical difficulties. I'll go ahead and cut those out for the YouTube version of this. But hopefully I will see you here again next time on Wednesday at 12. And it looks like I have taken care of our streaming issues here. It looks like I have, I've not dropped a frame since those initial problems. But now I know that particular decoder does not work. All right. Thank you, folks. We'll see you here on Wednesday. Have a great day.